Hey, folks, welcome again. Thank you all for being here on a lovely Thursday afternoon. As you all know, as we've been going through soul sessions, I've been having these conversations around changes. And I mentioned there are two sides of it. There are people that are actually going through these changes currently. And then you have practitioners who are actually helping people through the series of those changes in their lives. I'm excited for, our guest today and what she will bring. As you can see from the title, it talks about autopilot and what that costs you, but it's so much more. So, as we get going, I would love to turn it over to our guest today to just introduce herself. And as we like to say here at Soul Sessions, who are you outside of the job? I'd love to hear that.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Well, who am I outside of this kind of job as a therapeutic coach? Well, I don't really separate my job and my private life because everything I'm doing is kind of tied to my profession as well. The way how I walk through life, how I experience life, I question life really brings the insight into my work. And yeah, so overall, I'm a person who is really curious. I have always questioned, in general, being very curious and questioning things in how the human mind works, why we do what we do, and that's the reason why I got into this field. So, other than that, other than thinking a lot and working on myself, I love to be in nature and outside.
Amazing. Is that a part of your background? I'm always curious about. It's interesting hearing the theme of curiosity and about the mind, about human psychology. So it sounds like that's been a theme. But you also mentioned nature. Is that,
Yeah.
is that where you grew up, or is there a special place, a special memory as you're thinking about nature?
Well, nature is, I think, very important because it really helps to ground ourselves, to bring us back to who we are. That's why nature always has been very important to me. And I grew up also in the countryside of Austria. And to talk about my profession and what I'm doing and how I got to working with people, I started my business 5 years ago. But originally, I am actually a social pedagogue and have been working in the mental health field my entire life. And because, as I said, I was always curious to understand how our mind is working and why we do what we are doing. And as a social pedagogue, oh, I lost you.
No, I'm still here. Go ahead.
Okay. I realized I'm kind of I'm not able to do the work I want to do. That is really truly helping people. That's why I started systemic coaching and continued with educations also in Canada. I moved to Canada some years ago, but I think overall for me it was always about how to support people and how to help people.
Yeah, I love that. It's oftentimes I often think that I often think about the idea that you can't give more than you've been given. And so it sounds like
Mhm.
you've always been thoughtful, you've always been introspective and turning that around, being able to offer that to others. So that's amazing. Um, that leads me to the other thing. And so you have such an interesting background coming from Austria and Canada. Um, you've the different parts of the globe. What type of person shows up right now in the proverbial seat across from you as you're doing the coaching? I'm curious about what types of people you work with and what does that look like right now?
Mhm. Well, it's a good question. I feel like things have been changing throughout the years, and maybe it also has to do with because our economy, the world is
Mm,
really shifting, and there's lots of pressure and a lot going on. There's a lot of crisis that people are experiencing at the moment. So, what kind of people are walking into my door right now? Men and women who are really reaching the point where they want to change things because the pain point the pain is so high, the suffering is so high, anxiety, because of change, sudden changes, life transitions. People who are coming to me, they are ready to change and they want to change. And I just had recently a client coming to me and she said, like, Stephanie, I was thinking of starting this journey with you a year ago. She was a referral. But it took her 1 year to actually get to this point where she was thinking of starting a journey and working on herself.
Interesting. I like that piece. What's coming up for me as you're saying that is, I oftentimes think about the last 5 years. The rate of change has been so crazy,
Yeah.
and maybe before, I often think about low grade stress or low grade stressors, like things that people could have lived with for a long period of time. But maybe in the last 5 years, it sounds like things have like escalated so much. And so now we're in a world or so much that's happening that people almost are at their boiling point. I'd be curious about when they show up, and it sounds like there's typically two types of people, and hopefully, one more than the other. Like there's some people like, oh, I feel like I need to change, but there's not like a major thing in my life. Versus now I'm at my boiling point, and I don't know if it's too late for you to work with me, but I'm at my boiling point. What are some of the similarities or across your clients that you're seeing when they show up and they're at that boiling point?
Well, there is lots of fear, overwhelm, stress. They're basically in fight or flight mode where it's difficult to either they're trying to react and make decisions out of fear, and that might lead to something really to their disadvantage, or they are so overwhelmed that they are numbing themselves and distracting themselves with all kind of things. The distractions we have. So to avoid to face those things that are coming up.
Yeah, there is, and in that, as I'm thinking, if I show up, oftentimes think that I may not have words for this. Are you the one that's helping them to see that, hey, here is a thing that you're doing, or here is the fear, or even the idea of fight or flight feels like you've just put that in a box. But I know it's not always that easy when they show up. Do they recognize that there's a level of fear, or are you working them through that process?
I think they don't recognize that there's that much fear. They might recognize there's some anxiety, but that requires already some kind of awareness. But a lot of people are still on autopilot, where they are not aware of how they are feeling, what's coming up, not connected to their bodies and minds, and that makes it difficult for them to recognize what's actually there. And I can help them through specific questions, guiding them, finding out what it is about.
Okay, I love this. And unprompted, so you mentioned there's a couple words that stood out to me: awareness, autopilot. Sounds like you have a system. So I'd love to hear, as I come in, I might have lost my job, or I might be going to be rocky places in my relationship. Walk me through how you're thinking about getting to that person. If there's a process, you can tell me. I don't know if there's like a 5-step process of, awareness, breaking up, but I'd be curious, like, how do you map that mentally of where this client is? Obviously, everyone's different to where I might want, to get them to. How do you do that?
Usually, well, I do have there is a process, I guess, because I have been working my entire life in this field, supporting people, helping people. I've done that from young on. And maybe I'm not always aware of the process behind, because I'm very intuitive as well. And but if I had to name it, for sure, the first step is always um, you have to imagine people coming, their lives are falling apart maybe, or depending how bad it is, but they might be very stressed out. It's really, there's in fight or flight. It's really about calming the nervous system.
Okay.
So there are lots of emotions, heavy emotions, and most of us have not learned how to actually process emotions, how to go through our emotions. That's why I mentioned earlier, we distract ourselves, we numb ourselves. We are actually not processing what's coming up. So the first step would be, if we are talking about steps, looking at their emotions and also helping them name them, acknowledge them, feel them, because emotions are energy in motion. And if we don't acknowledge them and feel them, this energy is stuck. It gets stuck in our system, and we need to release emotions. We need to release this energy. If we don't release this energy, it's just being suppressed, and more things are coming up, piling up, and that's how also anxiety or depression comes up, like why we feel suddenly so pressured, or we explode out of the blue without any specific reason, because we have not been processing our emotions. So first step would be looking at those emotions, what's there. And then might take some time, depends on the person, but the second step is very important step as well, acknowledgement. Why I'm talking about acknowledgement is when we are going through change, because when things are happening, when life situations are changing, when we lose the job, the relationship, or whatever it might be, we want to hold on to those things. We want to hold on to those things that we are about to lose, or that we have been losing. It's very difficult to it's difficult to just let go. It's difficult for all of us. And
Totally,
that's why,
right?
So that's why this step 2, acknowledgement of the status quo, is so important. It's the acceptance. It is what it is, accepting the isness of the situation. This is outside of my control. That's what's happening right now. I can't change it. I can't make it go away, or bring it back again. Acceptance. And you have to work through acceptance. It's also, it does not just happen like that, that we accept, right? And once we accept, I can help the person find new solutions, because once the emotions are calming, once we accept, we are open to different options. And that's when we are also able to bring in creative ideas and solutions, because change does not always mean it's bad. We think it's bad because it's the unfamiliar. It's scary because we don't know what's going to happen. We are not used to it. It's scary, super scary. And when we are so scared, when we are in fear, we cannot think clearly. We cannot think creatively. We cannot bring in new solutions. But you can also not bypass those steps. You have to feel your feelings, then the acceptance. Okay, that's what it is. And then what can come out of this? What's possible?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much there that we could pull on. So I like that the first thing you do is calming the nerves, calming the nervous system. I don't know if it's Peter Levine, but I remember reading a long time ago the idea that, if we think about like us as animals, if we think about cats or dogs, whenever something happens to them, they shake it off and they move on. Oftentimes, we as humans, we don't, release the emotions that come. We tend to bottle it up. We think that the best way to deal with it is to bottle it up, to not process it, because we have this notion that emotions are bad, instead of saying, how could I become aware of what's happening in a non-judgmental way. And we want to come to this. It's like, how do I respond instead of react? And so there's a version of what you're sharing is that, okay, I think, oh my God, if so many people get this, I'm like, how do we just process our emotion well? Are there tips that you use? I personally do a lot of breath work, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years. Any other tips that you've seen or practice? Because that's one of the words I want to make sure I'm highlighting here, that what you're not saying is that it is a one session and done. This is a practice that you're constantly doing. Are there practices that you've seen to help to, if I am on my laptop in my head for the last 5 years, how do I get back in my body? How do I get back acknowledging my emotions?
Very good question. It's often simpler than we think, and we often think we have to do so much, or it has to be complicated. But that's a belief as well, right? It can be very simple. It's always all about awareness, and that's all the work I am doing. It's like all about awareness, bringing things to awareness, and being aware of ourselves. And when we are aware of ourselves, we can be aware of our surroundings as well. But to get back to your question, it's really interesting. I think the way how we grew up, and we never really, I think maybe now things are changing. Parents are more conscious as well. But back then we never talked about emotions and how to feel, right? And breath work, those kind of things, perfect. Cold exposure, great. All those things, meditating, yoga, great. But I would go even simpler. It's really learning. It's simple, but not easy. It's really learning when when things are coming up, arising, to notice that there are emotions, and to really pay attention to those emotions, to sit with them for a moment. Emotions usually arise, they come up. It's fast. It doesn't take. It's when you cry, it doesn't mean you cry half an hour. That's actually when we get into this drama loop. Real emotion is really like, it's fast, it comes up, and then we feel it, we allow it to be there, and then it evens out, it gets lighter. So it just wants to be released and acknowledged. So when you first part is like being aware what's going, like that there is something going on. And I think the best way is like to find a quiet spot for yourself where you're safe, where you can just sit down, and then look what's there. Ask yourself, talk to yourself. You can talk to yourself out loud or quietly, but you can talk to yourself and like, okay, what's going on? What's there? And then when you notice, oh, there's actually really deep disappointment coming up, or anger, it's like, okay, let the disappointment be there. Don't over identify with it, but just allow it to deeply feel it. It's like go into this feeling of disappointment. Maybe you close your eyes and like, okay, wow, this is really painful. And you really go into this emotion, and maybe it sounds silly to some of the people listening, but there's so much truth and healing to it. I have been doing this work for so long and helping people for so long. It's really oftentimes the most simple of things. And it starts with awareness and acknowledging what's there and just feeling those things coming up. And then often, like after that, you can just move on and do things again. Like it's not that you need to be like the suffering. Can I talk about the suffering quickly?
Yes, let's go there.
Because when there is change happening, things are happening, life situations changing, and it's scary. There is this resistance to change, and this resistance to change makes it harder to deal with change. And this creates suffering. The pain is not the problem. And the pain, we can deal with the pain, and we should, like, we are alive, we are human beings, and it helps us learn, grow, be empathetic, all those things, right? So pain, to feel those feelings that are coming up, yes, but the suffering, to drag those feelings on and on, like with you, just to stay in there, that's something we create ourselves. That's part of being on autopilot and not being aware what's happening.
Yeah. Most recently, someone was hinting at that similar idea that we can't avoid pain, but suffering is optional. And we oftentimes get into those scenarios where we unknowingly hold on to things for too long. And that's what's causing us more. And I'm to be honest with you, like, the people that are listening, and even myself, growing up, the idea that to sit with disappointment feels against everything that I've heard. Like, what do you mean I should allow that emotion and sit with it as much as possible? And then, but what you're saying is, hey, this is only for a brief. It's oftentimes probably going to last much shorter than you think. It could be a 3-minute thing. You cry, and not saying you're fully over it, but at least you've processed it to a certain point. What that's bringing up for me is a question that, if high performers, either in sales or startups, they might think about progress differently. And I know you have an interesting way of thinking about making progress in this work. How, if I'm saying like, oh, am I doing it right? Or, like, oh, I want to know that I'm getting it. How are you coaching others or your clients to say, here's what progress looks like. Here's what potential success might look like for you. Because I think this work is so powerful, but it feels in my head like, okay, how do I know if I'm doing it right?
Yeah, that's a very good question. If you don't mind, I want to just go back quickly to feeling your feelings or acknowledging your emotions, sitting with your emotions. I also think for men, it might be also slightly different.
Say more.
I think maybe also for men, movement is also super important to process emotions, like being aware of your emotions, what's there, and maybe connected, like you don't necessarily have to sit with them. Go and do something with those emotions, with awareness. Like, this is coming up, lots of anger is coming up. Maybe I'm going to the gym and doing a workout. So it's like you use this energy to move it as well. And I see it in men. It's a little bit different how we are different. And I think my movement might be very beneficial for men, how to process emotions, also for women as well. But maybe for women, it's more like sitting, but not to say that men shouldn't sit, but
yeah, totally.
And, but to get back to what you said with what does progress look like? I think I like to measure it. Well, when I work with my clients, and especially with clients I've been seeing throughout a long period of time, I'm like a witness, right? I have seen them coming to me and then being on this journey, going through all those things and shifting and changing. If they are committed, of course, I cannot do any magic. I'm just a guide, right? But if someone is committed and open to change, then everything is possible. But progress, well, as I mentioned, I'm like a witness. I do know where my clients where they started, where they wanted to go, where their goals are, and I can see the change. And I would mention throughout the journey what I'm seeing, what's shifting and changing. And I would ask them as well, like, do you see the change? Because it's interesting, when we are starting to change, we don't necessarily recognize it ourselves. I don't know if you just experienced that, because we work on ourselves, we change, we have experiences. And then you meet someone who you haven't seen for a while, and this person says like, wow, you have changed so much, like you have
Yeah.
grown so much. Have you had this kind of
Totally.
experience?
I've had people in multiple areas of my life and in multiple different seasons, um, different people who knew me. And that's why sometimes it's good to have people that, you haven't seen in a while and you're like, wow, like something's different.
Mhm.
And it's hard because there's also sometimes the type of work that you're talking about affects so many different areas of your life. And so for me, becoming aware and just aware of my emotions and how things are affecting me made me a better conversationalist. So I can sit in a
Mhm.
conversation like this and say, okay, what that's bringing up for me, like I can reflect that back to you in so much different ways that I might not have been able to do 5, 10 years ago. And
Mhm.
I might have been working on this idea of like, okay, processing and moving emotions because I got too upset. Like I didn't like how I was when I was getting upset. Or I used to do sports, and whenever I didn't win, oh my God, like my emotions were all over the place. And so having to do that work have affected so many different areas of my life that I can now show up in a different way, because not only do I have a practice of processing and moving that
Mhm.
emotions, it has helped me to be more present in so many different areas. So I've totally seen that, and even to the point where you kind of hinted at it, where there's a lot of things that I might be working on, or I know it's like a several weeks. And one of the things that I consider progress for myself sometimes, or my wife or people in my life, is there's a
Mhm.
reaction that I know I used to have, or a thought that I used to have. And I might find myself catching myself in the moment of like, oh wait, I don't think like that anymore. Or I used to be in a funk and maybe it takes me 3 days to get out of the funk, but now it takes me 3 hours, so just these small things, also as well. Like it's
Mhm.
other people I've seen it, but also me, just like, it's small wins of like, I used to blow up when I get, this news, or this type of thing happens. And now I'm a little bit more able to quickly rebound from certain scenarios like that.
It seems like you have been able to reflect on yourself so much more, and that's why you see the change, and you kind of can measure it, right? You see how it has been in the past and what's possible now, and um, that's because you have been changing, creating more awareness, being less and less on autopilot, and you said something interesting, reacting. I don't know, I would like to touch base on reacting versus responding as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah.
That that would fit in there right now. It's also it's about learning how to respond to situations, people, to life, and not to react. So when we are on autopilot, we are reacting. We are not aware of what's happening. And the goal is, when we start becoming more aware, that we can actually respond to situations. We are in control, and when we are reactive, we are not in control.
Yeah. It's when you're saying that, there's a word that comes up to me is like capacity and expansion.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, in a lot of scenarios, if we've only known one thing, you might be saying to a client like, hey, another way of handling this is possible. But because I only know one thing, it's hard for me to even imagine that I could become that person. Because at any given moment, you do have a choice, and oftentimes we don't think, like, even when you're in autopilot, you're not choosing. But even just hinting that, like, wait, there is a moment to get out of there. There are opportunities for you to refrain what's happening, and instead of quickly reacting on autopilot, to respond in a way that's more truthful to you. I think that feels like the question I often ask myself, like, how might I expand my capacity to include the different facets? So instead of thinking there's only A or B option, what if it's,
Mhm.
both things can be true? What if there's
Mhm.
option C, D, and
Mhm.
E? And
Mhm.
I think that's so important, of even a
Mhm.
question that I might continue to ask myself in different scenarios. And it's, how am I reacting, or am I responding? and how might I expand to see what else might be possible. And that does take work. Like, I'm not saying that this is like a thing that happens overnight, but
Mhm.
it's it's questions like these that should spark something in the person who wants to change, that then oftentimes think about it, it's the thread that you pull on that continually moves to the change that you might want, you know.
Yes, totally. I had so many thoughts. But yeah, well, reacting and responding. Give me a second here. It's gone. Maybe it will come
Yeah.
back.
Okay. So last two things, and if it comes back, let me know. But I think it might.
Mhm.
The two things I've been thinking about. One of them is near and dear to my heart is play, because there's a version of this of like we've lost our playfulness, and I've been wrapping my head about how might this help, because we think about this as work, but oftentimes if
Mhm.
everything feels like work, do we ever? We don't want to do it. And then the
Mhm.
other one is intention. So whether it's intention in the small thing, but also intention in playing, right? Like
Mhm.
I joke about I was at the track recently, and there was one of those, I don't know if you've seen like high jump bags that they left out, or a sand pit. And I was like, I'm just gonna go jump in the sand pit. And it was like an intentional just being playful or getting on the swing
Mhm.
set. And it was only for 5 to 10 seconds, but something within me was just like, yeah, I'm glad I did that.
Mhm.
I'd be curious, like how are you seeing that? How are you playing around with that with your clients today?
Yeah, well, playfulness. Super important. It's like connecting with your inner child. We all are having, like, our inner child is with us, right? Um, and I think there is so much pressure for a lot of people, how to perform, and to there's so much control as well, like
Mm,
needing certain things things have to go a certain way. When you are in this kind of state, it's really difficult to be playful. But why is it good to be playful? Why is it good to connect with your inner child? Well, it brings in some lightness into your life. How did it feel when you did jump into this pit of sand?
yeah, I
Like,
felt free. I felt, like you mentioned, like I was breaking the script. It was almost like, oh, you've heard it said you shouldn't do this, or you've heard it said you shouldn't do that. And there's
yeah,
this like who says who, like that's like kind of the thought that was going through my head as well.
here we go with those limiting beliefs. That's also a big part. Like, it's not only um, being on autopilot, also means um, we all have our limiting beliefs, the way how we grew up, how we have been conditioned, the things we think about life, and everybody has different opinions, right? And that creates our world, how we define our world. And once we start opening up, that's also when you get out of autopilot, and that's when you can be more intentional as well, because being intentional means um, being not on autopilot. It means like being aware of what you're doing, why you're doing this. It's the energy behind your actions. So
Mhm.
there can be two people speaking the same words, but the meaning behind the words might be completely different. One person speaks those words, and the energy behind the meaning behind it is more like, I need approval so badly, I want to be seen, or manipulation, or whatever it might be. The other person's intention, the energy behind, might be like, oh, I want to connect, I want to be honest, like whatever it might be. So intention, same words spoken, but the
Mhm.
energy behind the intention behind it is different. And that's also something we can pick up on and feel, even though it's not visible, but you can sense it. We can sense energy, we can sense
Yeah.
what's behind it. Why sometimes when you speak to people, it feels like you can feel their authenticity, or you can feel that's honest, and you can open up, and then sometimes you feel like you need to be guarded, and you have to be careful. Like, its intention is getting out of autopilot and being aware of how you do things, why you do things. You are seeing the bigger picture. You're seeing the entire picture.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's there's something there about the energy and intention, and how is it that it's interesting. Like as you become more aware, you can also pick it up in others, right? And it's like if I become aware of the intention and the energy and intention flowing through me, it's easier for me to pick up whether someone is genuine or not, or when something's blocking there. So it's this
Mhm.
interesting play between inter people, internally, that's happening. Oh my God, so much we've covered. Types of folks you handle, your clients. We're talking about awareness coming from autopilot, calming the nervous system, acknowledgement, which is also big, and just acknowledging the situation of what it is. As you're wrapping up, I'm curious if there is any questions that you might want people to walk away with this session with, or any last parting thoughts. As people are thinking about, like, hey, am I in autopilot? What should I be thinking about in moments of crisis? Yeah, as we wrap up.
Um, well, we don't know when we are on autopilot. That's the thing. When we are in crisis, and we are not I don't think anybody's aware when we like to. No one will say like, oh, I'm on autopilot. It's you will recognize that you're on autopilot when you are having difficulties dealing with things. And as I said, like it creates more suffering, and we are holding on to things, right? So that maybe might be helpful for you as an indicator to see like, oh, maybe there's something to explore, to open up a little bit. Maybe there are more colors than black and white. Maybe there's something in between. I would say, just start questioning more.
Yeah.
Question things, why you do what you do. And often we do the same things every day, and just start with the little things to question and see why you're doing what you're doing. And yeah. Maybe one question you can ask yourself is, when you realize something is not good for you, why would it be difficult for you to let it go? What's the value it still carries? Because when we notice, okay, that's not good anymore for me, and maybe I should change, we often still hold on to those things, although we know it's bad, because we are used to those things, and that it feels familiar, and it's a good feeling. Like it might be harmful or toxic, but it's like, I know what it is, and the familiarity wants us to stay there, feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard to let go. So if you have a hard time letting go, maybe ask yourself, what is the value that it still holds for me? There must be some kind of value. Because if you notice there is no value, actually, there's nothing really, then you can go and start the process of letting go and changing. But as long as there's some value, it's where you need to look at it, because as long there's value, it's difficult to change.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. There's two things. Number one of the things that we say here at a Soul Session is that the question is more important than the answer. Because, so many people are afraid to question things in their lives. And oftentimes the right question, whether or not you arrive at the answer, but it sends you off seeking something, or it jolts you out of it. And like you mentioned, that, man, that is so good, the idea that, like, you don't release things that don't have value. And so if something it's serving you in some way that you may not have recognized. So good. Stephanie, thank you so much. Where can people connect with you? I know we have some stuff that we'll send in the wrap up, but just if there's any cool things you have coming up, where can people connect with you in the best way possible as we end today?
The best way is on my website, stephaniekollmann.com.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll drop the link, and then for the recap, everyone will have it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Thank you.